we're right on your heels with that for that draft pick. So we'll see if that can change. Who do you guys got next week?
Saints at home.
Ooh, that's a tough one. Who knows? That could go
Yeah,
either way.
that's a good, at the end of these games as you're fighting for playoffs, at least you get to play spoiler.
Yeah.
And I mean, who would you rather beat right now if you're the Denver Broncos and the Kansas City Chiefs? And
Ooh, maybe the Raiders, just because
maybe
I
the
hate them even
Raiders.
more. Yeah.
But the Falcons getting the Saints at home, a chance to knock them out of the playoffs and sweep them for the season would be a nice cherry on top of a encouraging season, but not great season.
Yeah, we got Sean Burns coming in here. Good morning. One more game under this coaching. Can't wait till I see the new ownership and coaching. Probably new quarterback play in there as well. So everything but George Payton as far as the four main pillars for a team. Probably going to change for the Broncos this offseason. Got the DWI guys. Good morning, Ethan. Ethan says, good morning, gents and Broncos country. EJ's in the house. Good morning, Nick and Scott and Broncos country. Hashtag fire the coaches. We got Luke Wrights in the house. Good morning to you, Luke. Good morning, Nick and Scott. Time to fire the coaches and go get Russell Wilson. Mile High Truth saying, let's do this thing. We got Shane saying, dare I say Vance was a better head coach than Vic? Vance at least showed some semblance of growth during his tenure, unlike Uncle Vic. It's definitely possible, Shane. I don't know. Incompetence is incompetence to me. Vic Fangio's it's a different flavor of not good, but it's still the end result not good. Dalen Joseph saying good morning with the sun up there, with the sun emoji. Good morning to you, Dalen. Fallen Sloth. Howdy, y'all. Hope all is well in Broncos country. I don't think all is well, but season's about to mercifully come to a close for everybody, so maybe everybody's feeling a little bit better there. Albert's in the house. Happy New Year's, guys, in Broncos country. Happy New Year's to you, Albert. And Percy coming in here, a name I don't recognize that much. Good morning.
Welcome.
Good morning to you, Percy. Guys, this is Broncos for breakfast. Obviously, we're kicking off here at about 7:30 a.m. Mountain Time. We've been going at you guys live every Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday since, probably since August. And we really appreciate it. This has become, I would argue, the second most popular show on the channel, even with the base being different, given it's a morning show. So appreciate you guys so much. We got DBA in the house. Good morning, everyone. And Jerry Drelling. Denver needs a new motor, coaching staff, and transmission. General manager. So yeah, guys. Obviously, Broncos for breakfast. You guys can follow Scott and myself on Twitter. Scott is at Scout Kennedy, and I am at Nick Kendell MHH. Also, make sure you're following us at Huddle Up Pod and at Mile High Huddle. If you guys are on Facebook, make sure you're involved in our communities at facebook.com/Mile High Huddle, as well as facebook.com/Mile High Huddle Pod. If you have an iTunes or you're listening to us after the fact, maybe you like your Broncos for breakfast for dinner. I'm not going to tell you can't enjoy that. I love cooking breakfast for dinner. It's one of my favorites. But make sure you guys are getting there on iTunes, leaving a 5-star rating and a review. And probably most important thing you guys can do outside of the generous super chats, which I know a lot of you guys are involved in, is subscribing, liking, and sharing to our YouTube channel at Mile High Huddle, clicking that bell notification so you know when we go live, and just sharing our content. If you have a Facebook, you have a Twitter, taking the link on YouTube and sharing it out there, saying, hey, these guys are fun. Even though the Broncos have torn my heart out, they at least make some enjoyment out of the pain. And also make sure you're following us at Scott's channel at youtube.com/C/Scott Kennedy. We'll see some more people coming in here. EJ's in the house. I think we also need to upgrade our offensive line and build around Pookie. Then it takes less pressure on the quarterback to make plays. The players we have are good, but not elite. What do you think about this, Scott? Building an elite offensive line, is that a viable strategy for the Broncos this offseason?
In one season, maybe not. But the thing is, if you one really good upgrade kind of works the whole line. So as you've said several times, Nick, and as you know, you're only as good as your weakest link. So if you upgrade right tackle, this line gets better, period. But what concerns me, honestly, is watching this game is, as I was watching yesterday, I watched the line of scrimmage on every snap, and just to see where it was set. Where was the line of scrimmage being set? And if the Broncos got a push, I mean, this isn't rocket science, okay? If the Broncos reset the line of scrimmage beyond where the ball was set, I'm like, oh, yeah, look, 6-yard run. If they didn't, if they got pushed back, the play was over.
Yeah.
They get pushed back way too often on the offensive line. That to me is one of the bigger problems. Wanted to say hello to Miguel coming in too as well. Buying some coffee this morning. Appreciate it. Says, good morning, fellas. I think I need a couple more cups of coffee after that one yesterday. Locke looked good, but the rushing game suffered because of injury. Maybe. maybe, and I'll tell you what. I was listening to the game yesterday. They have an official sleep sponsor. They have a mattress sponsor of the Denver Broncos radio. And at first, I was thinking, if this was a sleep aid, I'd want my money back. I'm like,
Yeah, okay.
this team's putting people to sleep with their offense in the first half. But being that it is a mattress, I'm getting sleepy. I could use a mattress. Where should I go? It actually made a lot of sense because, yeah, you do need a couple of coffees because not only is being bad enough, but when you're bad and boring, and uninspired, that's when you lose the fan base. You've lost everything. Y'all have heard me say 100 times, what's worse than anger is apathy. And if you don't make a change next week, you risk losing more. You've already lost a good percentage of this fan base to being, I got other things I can go do than watch this team. Is the apathy, and you're forced to make a change.
Yeah, definitely a tough team to watch right now, but this was going to be tough with the all the people on reserve list and the Broncos. A lot of people, I think, are already looking at the door for the season changing over, but that's what happens when you're not a playoff team at this point. Broncos did play meaningful football in December, which I said was my goal number one this offseason. They didn't play a week more of meaningful football this year, but it's here we are, and Broncos are picking 11th. They can pick anywhere from the 7th overall pick in the draft all the way down to 14. So there's your range. We'll see what happens next week. We got JJ Johnson in the house saying, "Good morning, Broncos country. Morning, Nick and Scott. Last game of the season. Can't hold anything back now. We do need some Bobby Boucher out there." And Micah Parsons looking at Bobby Boucher out there this year. He's been killing it. Leroy Williams. Drew Lock looked good yesterday, despite on what he was working with. I would bring him and treat him like a rookie, bring him back and treat him like a rookie, draft another quarterback to battle it out in camp and pick up another vet. I will not trade away all my draft capital. We are not getting Rodgers or Wilson. Well, I think you got to try with Rodgers or Wilson. If those two guys are available, you need to at least make the call. Maybe it doesn't work out, but this is the Broncos tried last year with Matt Stafford. Didn't work out, but they also tried years ago with Peyton Manning, and you never know unless you put yourself out there. So I think if those two guys become available, they are going to at least make a very competitive offer. It'll take 3 to tango, not 2, because it takes the quarterback and the opposing team in this situation. But I do think they're going to try, and from there we'll pivot.
I know one of the Locked On guys that does Locked On Falcons has he threw out a mock today and had Russell Wilson going to the Giants with the number 5 overall pick. The Giants have a decent bit of draft capital themselves. I think they've got 2 top 10 picks coming into this year. My question was, would Russell Wilson really want to go to the New York Giants? Maybe. I was surprised when Eli wanted to go to the Giants over the Chargers. Because coming about that time, I'm not too far off the Dan Fouts, Air Coryell bandwagon. Beautiful weather in San Diego. Why would you want to go play with the Giants when you could be a quarterback and go play in San Diego? So nothing surprises me in this game. But there's going to be a lot of competition for Russell Wilson out there. There's this narrative, and I don't know why around in this group of pod that he's like falling off. I'm like, good Lord, his falling off is still better than anything you've seen in years. Yes, he's worth it.
Yeah, I think the Eli Manning situation, there was something there with one of the head coaches or the general manager.
I think there was
Arch Manning.
coaching. I think there was a personality conflict of sorts at the time. It worked out fairly well for everybody.
Yeah.
I think they got Phillip Rivers and like LaDainian Tomlinson out of it or something. I don't remember exactly what it was. Chargers were involved in a couple of big trades where Drew Brees, LaDainian Tomlinson, Michael Vick, I think they had the number 1 overall at that time. So the Chargers were a hub there for a couple years. I get those mixed up.
We got Kaylon Green coming in here. Yo, good morning to you. We got Kelly's in the house too. Good morning, Broncos fans. DBA, I have a terrible fear that the coaches, or at least Vic, doesn't get fired due to the ownership situation. Yeah, the ownership situation really makes this interesting for Denver because obviously they're not going to really change over that ownership situation until late spring, early summer. But you'd have to think that a lot of this is already wheels are in motion, and there's some back channels where whoever is most likely to win the ownership situation is at least giving like a thumbs up or a thumbs down. Like you can't say anything, but you can laugh react to the tweet that or the text that I send you situation. So I do think that these guys are gonna get fired. I'll tell you who needs to get fired. Should have left him in Los Angeles. Tom McMahon God bless you, man. Good luck with the rest of your life, wherever it is. Maybe you can have a good gig. I know he's really close with Pat McAfee, who does that, making money on the Pat McAfee show. I think Tom McMahon might even be a producer to that show or something. Tom, good luck to you, because my God, with special teams, again, we can talk defense, we can talk offensive line. 3 special teams plays in this game where it's like you're pulling your hair out saying WTF. And I know that the bug ravaged the Broncos, which makes it hard with the special teams units, because that's one of the ones that's going to have the most turnover. But like the opening kickoff, terrible. Muffed punt, terrible. Kickoff for a touchdown, terrible. That's 3. That's a season's worth of bad special teams.
That's a season's worth right there. You're right.
Right there. Tom, get out of here, Tom. I'm sorry. I hope he's a real person. He's got some humanity, but like, you've run out of 9. Your cat's 9 lives. You're done. Get out of here. I'm so fed up with special teams.
Yeah, and speaking of fed up with offensive line play, Kevin V. I'm not sure how to pronounce your last name. Help me out with that one, and I'll get it right next time, I hope. But he says, "Hey y'all, me and Nick talked through Twitter, but would it be a tad extra if the Broncos took 2 tackles with our top 100 picks? Penning and Cross looks solid. I think taking 2 tackles would be a little bit much, unless one of them can, be an interior line also. I think with the money that you owe Bowles, he's not going anywhere. I haven't checked his dead cap. Your dead cap situation isn't nearly as bad, but Bowles is serviceable in that I definitely want to go after right tackle. For me, that's arguably that and edge are the 2 biggest needs for me on this team. But I think Bowles is still serviceable, even if he's expensive. That you can use that money's not really a problem with this team yet. That you can use that other pick somewhere else.
Yeah, Garrett Bowles doesn't really make sense to move on from until, gosh, maybe even after the 2023 season, where he can save you $16 million, but only $4 million dead cap. Before that, you don't get that much relief comparative to the dead cap. But you're talking about not only 2 tackles here in the top 100, those are probably 2 tackles with your first and second round pick with Penning and Cross. Heck, Cross might not even make it to your first round pick, and Penning might not even make it to your second round pick. So if the board stacks up a way where the tackle is the best player available and you're keeping all your top 500 picks, I don't have an issue going tackle 2 multiple times. I mean, I think he nailed it, where if you can have a tackle who has some guard flexibility too, all the better. But throughout a season, you're going to use 7 to 8 offensive linemen. So I think people don't appreciate the depth enough on that unit. And it's something that you need to attack as well, because one weakness on that line can sink a game, and you're going to be 7 or 8 deep throughout the season. So to get those guys in there, I can't remember who it is. There's some draft analyst out there who talks about it. It's when you make a fire, you don't want to just wait till the fire is dead and have to rebuild it every time. You want to keep it and put a log on the fire. That's what trench play is. You want to continually feed the stove, so that way it's still burning bright. And if the Broncos took 2 tackles because they were BPA, then that'd be amazing. I would have no issue with it. You're looking to go elsewhere. But if the board dictates that, again, hashtag team draft good players. So thank you, Kevin, and good morning to you.
Yeah. and coming into this week's game, the Broncos don't really have anything to play for except pride, which is a big deal, especially when you're going against a rival. I haven't looked. I know with the Chiefs' loss, I'm not sure how far you could knock them down. I don't think you can knock them out. They've sewed up a spot. What does a loss to them mean, really? How much of a spoiler can you play? But would you bother playing your best players against the Chiefs only to risk them injured? And Peter, appreciate the stars this morning on Facebook. Yeah, you play to win. You play this one to win. You're playing for next year. These are auditions for players. These are auditions for coaches. There's a reason why you hear Vic Fangio throwing the offense under the bus the last several weeks. Now, the Huddle Up Pod guys like to say that that's a Teddy Bridgewater thing. I actually think it's more of a Pat Shurmur thing, to be honest with you. I think it's him distancing himself from that hire, knowing that Shurmur, no matter what, is gone, and trying to make excuses for the next interview that he gives. Hey, I made a mistake with this hire, and it didn't work out, and it really cost us. What I hear is offense, not Drew. When I listen to these press conferences, so every time I hear offense, I hear Shurmur, not necessarily Drew. So if you think of it that way, it starts making look at it that way instead of the quarterback situation. I start hearing different things. So would I play my best players against the Chiefs? Yeah, I absolutely would. Play this one to win. These guys are, you've got guys that are fighting for jobs for next year, fighting for contracts for next year. They want to play. And Nick, did you freeze up on me? Because you've got a silly look on your face. So let me remove Nick and we'll come back in. So went on a monologue there and wasn't too sure. So It's just me for the time being. And I saw Ethan come back in here also. Let me scroll down a little bit and we'll get his take on that. Here we go with the 8181. Why can't appreciate you, Ethan, over in London. Why can't Fangio, Pat Shurmur, and I'm not even positive his name, the special teams coach, I think it's Tom McMahon, be more like Antonio Brown and just leave? That was a good super last night that I got a kick out of. That I saw last night too. And yes, you watch Antonio Brown and you start worrying about the mental health of some of these players. It's kind of a funny thing, funny, not so funny, but there's obviously, he ain't all there. And it hits a little bit closer to home down here in Atlanta with Calvin Ridley. And you don't know if he's just like, listen, I don't want to play anymore, or it's a substance abuse problem. You don't know any of these things, but I don't want to see him turn Antonio Brown. I don't want to see him turn Everson Griffin and all these things. But yeah, my friend Andrew Hawkins played in the league for a little bit as a really funny personality now. He tweeted out best retirement announcement of all time. I got a kick out of that one. But why can't they just leave? Because they have contracts that will pay them out to be fired. Why would I just quit when you can fire me and get paid? If I quit, I don't get paid. That doesn't make any sense. I'm not quitting. You're going to have to fire me. That's why, they don't quit. They don't ever just resign. They make way too much money. There's way too much money involved in here for them. But appreciate the support of Ethan, as always. Lawrence is coming in. And let's see, that was 3 minutes ago, which would be 9:46. So Lawrence is down here a little bit. He says, but fire Elway if you want to be accountable for once. That's where we should start. Who gets a raise to be the head of the front office when he had 5 bad losing years? Now he has a say in everything that goes on. I think we can finally call it quits with him. What do you guys think? I think he's on his way out. The only way, I think his contract is up in this offseason, and Lawrence, appreciate the stars. He's on his way out. He's done. So the only way that John Elway has a say in Broncos football moving forward, one, through, positive press, people are still going to listen to him. If he's at a game, the camera's going to go right to him and the microphones are going to go right to him. But 2, if he's part of an ownership deal. If he's part of an ownership deal, he might have more of a say than he ever has. So think about that when you start thinking, who do we want as our new owners? Do we want it to be a John Elway guy? If you think that John Elway is a big part of the problems that Denver Broncos country has had over the last several years, your answer is probably no. I don't want John Elway to be involved because he would be the football guy. The money guys, they made their money in Silicon Valley somewhere. What the hell do they know about football and running a team? They're going to look to a football guy. And who better than Denver's Broncos icon, John Elway? So there's your football guy right there. Shane coming in just a little bit below. They call it the Aviator. Shane, I actually, you might or might not find this interesting. I actually have a pilot's license. I was working on my my instrument in college. Long time ago. I haven't flown in a long time. It's no coincidence that I've been sober just about as long as that I stopped flying. Those things don't mix very well. But I know that Chad likes to call you the Aviator, so I think that's very cool. That was something that was kind of a dream job of mine. But Shane comes in and says, "Good morning, Nick and Scott. Drew Lock did well, as did Fant and Sutton. In my opinion, Lock should have started from the beginning. I like his ability to create explosive plays. Still needs to work on making reads pre-snap. He could have been better with different coaching staff that knows how to develop young QBs." I haven't seen anything this year since I've been watching. No, I didn't watch the Broncos last year, and he was bad last year. Broncos were bad last year. But I haven't seen anything this year that makes me think otherwise than what you just said. Appreciate the stars, Shane. I'm going to move this down here just a little bit. Coming out of the preseason, I think Nick and I both said at the same time, when they were deciding on quarterback, I'd probably go with Drew Lock. I don't see enough separation between the two of them that you go with the younger guy, go with the incumbent, go with the guy you've got for 2 years. Now, obviously, Vic Fangio and Pat Shurmur didn't think that they could win with Drew Lock, and they had to win this year. They had to win it this year, and if they don't have any belief in their quarterback, then they weren't going to win this year. It was not necessarily the best situation in the world when you got a guy they could not afford to rebuild. They couldn't afford to get off to a slow start. They needed a guy that was going to come in and win those first couple games and give them a chance to make a playoffs. That's their thinking. Now, a lot of our thinking is probably Drew Lock probably could have won those first 3 games as well, and he would have played better and better as the season wore on, where a guy like Teddy at best is going to stay at the same level, maybe even drop off as he starts getting banged up. A couple of concussions to go with that. But when we talk about playing your best players, right now, I think Drew Lock gives you a better chance to beat the Chiefs right now than Teddy Bridgewater. Teddy Bridgewater hasn't played in a few weeks, hasn't looked great in the previous weeks. Yeah, Drew Lock should be one of those guys, and Drew Lock absolutely wants to be out there. He's got I posted a video of him talking about his shoulder injury. And he says, no way was I going to sit on the sidelines for that. No way. I took a shot and get me right back in there. That video is on the channel right now too. Hold on one second, please. So the good news for Drew is he's under contract he's the only quarterback under contract next year. So all of these things that we talk about, Aaron Rodgers, Russell Wilson, right now, all these are just hypotheticals. We're going to take a guy in the draft. Who else could be getting free agency? There's only one guy right now that you absolutely could have next year for sure if you wanted him. That's under your control. That's what I mean. I know that sounds a little odd. Could have, maybe. Yeah. He's under your control next year. There's only one guy that you've got under your control next year, and that's Drew Lock. You've got every incentive in the world to make Drew Lock work. Who has more incentive than George Paton to make Drew Lock work? And he's the one that's going to be pulling the strings. So, yes, I think having him go out and play again next week would be the right thing to do, assuming his shoulder is good. He did have to get a shot to numb it up, as he said, and it was pretty numb after the fact, but says it is doing better. And I think you got to go with a guy, even if you bring in a defensive-minded head coach, you're going to bring in a quarterback whisperer of sorts. You're going to bring in a guy who has a better, not win now type, so to speak, but somebody that unless you bring in your veteran quarterback, if you have Drew Lock and a young quarterback to come in, you're going to need somebody that's got a reputation for developing quarterbacks. That's the way to go, no matter what, as far as I'm concerned. Miguel's coming back in here. Let me find Miguel down here. Just a couple slots. See, I'm usually doing this in the background. Normally it's like, when Hitch is talking behind the door in the movie Hitch, it's like normally I've got me back here talking to my ear. So I have to go back this way. And Miguel says, I think our biggest needs have to be interior D-line and right tackle. Rough to watch running backs kill us. Then again, Miguel, appreciate the stars. The trenches, coming into the season, and I know there's been some injuries, but you thought you were going to be better in the trenches. And watching, I let off the show with it, watching the beginning of the game to the end of the game, every snap, I would focus the first 2 seconds on where does the line reset. You can tell where it resets, like where does it stop? So you've got the snap, and then there's either a push and a hold, or a stalemate and a hold, or a push and a hold. So where does the line reset after every snap? And I bet you the Broncos lost 75% of the snaps during that game, whether it was on offense or defense. The Chargers were resetting the line of scrimmage in a positive manner for them. Now, why? Okay, right guard Dalton Risner. I didn't see if he came back in. I know he was hurt. He hasn't played that great this year. Cushenberry is much better than the options, but he hasn't been that great this year. Miners, rookie, ups and downs. Bowles, he's been okay. He hasn't been great. And the right tackle, kind of, again, he's been okay, not great. Okay, well, I didn't have really anything positive to say about anybody on the offensive line just now. That's a problem. The defensive line, I know Shelby Harris gets a lot of stick, but I thought he played a decent game yesterday. Again, I'm watching on where you're resetting the line of scrimmage, and he was getting a push and hold. His job as a 3-4 defensive end is to occupy space, is to take on 2 blockers. And if he can do that without giving ground, he's doing his job. I thought he did a decent job out there. Purcell, See, the Falcons have a Pennell at nose guard, and the Broncos have a Purcell, or vice versa. So I apologize if I mix those up. And they're both Mikes, I believe. So I get those guys confused. But the interior line, Purcell, he's okay. Again, a 3-4. He's okay, but he's not holding down that line. And your job as a nose guard, it's a crap job. It really is. Your job is just to make sure that they don't move you. And if I can hold out an arm and get a guy for a tackle, then great. Again, and then on the edge, when we started this season, we were salivating the idea of a healthy Von Miller, a healthy Bradley Chubb. Well, that didn't happen. Instead, we're talking about rookies that are showing well, that we're excited about. But rookies are still rookies. You know, they're not all going to be Micah Parsons out there on the defensive end. So yeah, we're excited about what we saw to Jonathan Cooper. A guy like Weatherly has come in and played well, but we never got the full season of Bradley Chubb. We got a couple games from Von Miller, and then you're in your backups, and then your front seven, your linebacking core, including the two edge guys, have just been decimated this year. Now, if I am excited about one thing, I love Griffith. I love him. 6'4", 250 pounds, rookie out of Indiana State. Played, I think I was listening to the guys on the Broncos broadcast yesterday. Said he didn't start playing until his senior year in high school. This guy's a baby. He's an absolute baby out there. He doesn't know what he's doing, and he's still out there making plays just on raw athleticism. Put him and Baron Browning next to each other, and for me, this is the argument for bringing back a Josie Jewell type. I think Alexander Johnson is gone, but I would love to have a $2 or $3 million Josie Jewell come back and mentor these young linebackers, Baron Browning and Griffith, and then see what happens with Kenny Young. But I'm a big fan of that idea, and it makes sense. It makes sense to do it. I like it when general managers do things that make a lot of sense. Let me scroll down here just a little bit. So Miguel, appreciate the stars again. Lawrence pops back in. Lawrence coming back in. Said, I'm really worried if we try to replace someone, we'll just go cheaper, though, and it'll get worse. That's been the whole goal, to get cheaper. Lawrence was a little upset with the general manager, and I don't know if you were going after Shermer yesterday or Elway. After today, I think you're going after Elway. I think Shermer is doing a really good job. If you think that his worst move might be Fuller, his worst move might not paying the price to get a quarterback to come in and compete with Drew. Okay, I get that, but overall, I think things are well. And Clayton come in and said, Scott Solo, what's up? Nick froze about 15 minutes ago, and he's probably texted me and said, hey, my computer died or something. But I keep expecting him to pop back in here. But getting back to Lawrence, really worried if we try and replace him, we'll just go cheaper. That is a concern to a little bit. When you start saying, look, we've got all of this cap room, well, what are you using it on? So my biggest critique from what I know from the public of watching, y'all have heard me say before, is why weren't you a little more aggressive at the right tackle position? You had the money. So when I start hearing about Melvin Gordon's contract, I haven't seen anybody that you have paid that has kept you from getting somebody else because you've got salary cap room. So the contracts right now aren't really an issue. We paid all this money to Sutton and Patrick, and we're not using them. Well, one, that's for next year, and that's for the next 3 years. And two, that didn't come up on this draft cycle, this salary cycle. And three, what was my third point on here? It's hard doing this by yourself sometimes. My third point on this is paying them didn't cost you anything else. So that's my idea of, when you're getting cheaper, are you still willing to spend the money? And I think that's what your concern is too, Lawrence. And that makes sense. It doesn't do any good to save the money if you're not going to spend the money when you come out and get it. But it looks like everything's been lined up to make that run at that quarterback for sure, to make a run at a quarterback in this offseason. I'm going to scroll down a little bit, make sure I don't miss any supers here. And then Lawrence came back in. And then I'll hit Juan Espinoza coming in here. Says, I hate to say this, but I don't think Vic is going anywhere because of the ownership situation. I disagree. I really do. The ownership isn't as big a deal as some of y'all. And I typed it in the background yesterday. I think the concern is I think we're all afraid to end up with Daniel Snyder. That's the the biggest fear. Excuse me. So what's the worst case scenario when you're talking about new ownership? My God, just make sure I don't get a Daniel Snyder. And I'm not talking about any of the off the field problems. Forget that part. That didn't even come into my mind when I said I don't want Daniel Snyder. You don't want a pushy, arrogant, know nothing, put your nose in everybody's business, run your franchise into the ground owner. That's what you got with Daniel Snyder. And those are his positive qualities. It gets worse from there. That's the exception. I don't feel like I could name 3/4 of the owners in the NFL. They're just behind the scenes. Most of them, these are investments. They're not they're vanity plays at best. A lot of times they're just a part of a number on a spreadsheet to a $1 billion corporation. So I don't think it's that big a deal, but you will know for sure if Monday comes around and George Payton hasn't made that move, something's up, because there's no reason at all to go past Black Monday with this coaching staff, unless Juan, something is up. So we'll get the answer to that. Hopefully before in a week. We'll get the answer to that in a week. Let me scroll down here a little bit. And Richard from Germany, if I'm not mistaken. He says, did the Bolts beat us in the trenches besides on special teams? Are the players too bad, or is it mainly a coaching problem? He needs to go. Vic Fangio, Pat Shurmur, and or Tom McMahon. I think it's the and across that. You might find some people that would stick up for Vic Fangio. There's not going to be many of them. You're not going to find anybody to stick up for Pat Shurmur, and you're not going to find anybody to stick up for Tom McMahon. I need some help here. I'm losing my voice. So, make sure I hit mute. Did the Bolts beat us in the trenches? Yes, they did. And part of that can be scheming too. When you become very obvious, when you become predictable, and one thing I notice about the lineups that how the team lines up, even when you're in 4 wide, everybody is so tight. I keep hearing 3 wide and a bunch formation. It's like everybody's always inside the numbers, and it's always super tight. And even if you're 4 wide, everybody's still crammed in the box. Man, spread them out. That's what the spread formations are for. You've got your farthest wide receiver out wide and a 4-man set's in a slot position. So it's a jumbled mess. So could this offensive line play better with better offensive play calling and coordination? Yes, I believe it can. Should you go out and try and fortify the trenches and get backups at center, competition for starting positions at center and guard and right tackle? Yes, you should. You should do both. So, but I think you're going to have a clean sweep on Monday, Richard, and appreciate the super chat on YouTube for sure. Let me see. I'm going to scroll down here just a little bit. Nick is actually calling me right now. Sorry, Nick. You know what I'm doing right now. I can't take that phone call. Lawrence says, and I missed this one. I can't quite find this one on the chat. So, are you aware that they froze him out not to let him reach his incentive at his contract worth $330,000? I am not aware. Let me see why he's calling. 1 second, everybody. Internet just crashed. I'm just going to say, holding down the fort. And sorry for those of you who are listening after the fact. We're having some technical difficulties here. Scroll down here. Peter Milton, here's a good question. Peter comes in and says, Peter, what are the positives from the Chargers game? Positive from the Chargers game right here. Positives from the Chargers game. I thought Drew Lock's play was a positive. He wasn't perfect by any means. I'd like to see his pre-snap reads. I'd like to know his pre-snap reads. I'd like to see him a little bit more poised under surefire passing situations when the pressure's coming. You see him, he gets happy feet a little bit. Peyton Manning, it was okay when you were Peyton Manning, you had happy feet. If you're not Peyton Manning, you get happy feet. It makes you look a little nervous. I don't know what the third down conversions were, but it didn't seem very good. But I thought Drew Lock's play overall was a positive. The inside linebackers play, again, I thought he played the number 50 Griffith. I thought he played really, really well, and just coming out of nowhere. Again, 6'4", 250 pounds, and able to play like that when he is really new to the game. That, again, I would love to have someone like Josie Jewell teach him how to play the game. Come in and put him under his wing for a year, and then let Griffith play for the next 10 years for the Denver Broncos. So I was very, very pleased to see that. Seth Williams. How about a little callback when we were talking about who are some of the guys that you're hoping you might see be a sleeper in this class? Seth Williams is a physical. He's physically capable of playing at a high level in this league. He really is. Playing at Auburn, I'm not sure he was ever really coached up on the intricacies of playing wide receiver. So having him on the practice squad and get a chance to get his feet wet in this game was great. You got a glimpse of what he's capable of. For me, that was a little bit of a positive. And I'll also go with Noah Fant. Noah Fant getting him the ball in motion, crossing routes, seam routes, getting the ball with his feet already moving is how you use Noah Fant. Don't have him turn around and do a 5-yard button hook and hit him and try and have him juke some way up the field. No. Momentum. Was it velocity times mass equals momentum? He's big. He's fast. Get him going. So having him on a crossing route or in the seam where his feet were already moving and could use that straight line speed of his is the way to use Noah Fant. And I thought that was a positive for sure. Here we go. Oh, and Shane says, I have a private instrument and multi-instrument 2 ratings. Good for you. That's a for going back to the flying discussion, that's a lot of work putting in here to get those ratings. I had about 100 hours when I was working on my instrument. And if I were to ever go back, I would get my instrument for sure, just for safety reasons. The weather can change so quickly. Falling Sloth comes in and says, so Scott, with that said, on the O-line being bad across the board, which slot should we prioritize replacing? I no longer left tackle is no longer emphasized as it was. So which slot is most valuable to an upgrade? Right tackle. It's got to be right tackle. That's where I'm looking. One, if I've got a high pick, and you will, there's a chance you could have a top 10 pick, top 15, for sure, not for sure, but pretty sure you're looking in the top 15. There's going to be some guys there. And I see Nick popping back in now. You have to go on the right now, Nick.
I was trying to message you. If you sent it to my phone, my wife is working on the Wi-Fi now. Now I'm using my phone as a hotspot, so hopefully it's working at all.
Seems to be doing okay.
Okay.
I need the backup. I talk for 30 minutes straight. My voice gives out, so I don't talk all day on this, so I need all the help I can get. I type messages to people and text people. I don't talk this much. The only time I'm talking is when I'm on with y'all.
Well, I'm gonna get it working here via my phone. And either way, you're doing a great job holding down the fort, and I appreciate you. And people in the chat who are living by and saying, "Answer Nick Scott." It's we're gonna figure it out. But I will be right back. I promise. I'm gonna use my phone because the wife is plugging away on the internet, which looks like it's completely crashed.
Okay. But for me on this one, the plays, you got to go tackle. I think you got to go tackle. You want to use a high pick there, and with 11 picks, I think it makes sense. There's Big Me again. That's scary. With 11 picks, you don't want to necessarily take 11 players. You can stash some players onto the practice squads and stuff. But I think you're better off taking some of those lower picks and moving up and getting a better player, getting a better prospect, and try and hit the interior line for some of those guys in the 3rd and 4th round. They are out there. They're out there for sure. Let me scroll down here a little bit. Oh, Travis Tarbucks is here also. Good morning, Travis. Let me scroll down and see if I can catch up a little bit. And then Ethan says, okay, send me a link to join on my email. We'll join by phone. I think he has already gotten that. See, I'm behind. I'm way behind when we start doing it this way. And I can do that. Invite. I think he's found it by now. Copy clipboard. And then I'll go, Nick, I'm sorry, y'all. But you know what? We're family here, right? So that was funny going on there. Wade says Nick Kendall wins. Okay, see when you're by yourself, you get on the chat, and sometimes when you see like spammers come in on the really busy chats, I can be 40 minutes behind trying to make sure that we're putting supers in. So I'm typing in the background, guys. We're 30 minutes behind on showing supers. Yeah, you don't care. I know. Let's get back to the chat and hit some of the questions. I know Miguel had asked, what are your thoughts on Fant? I gave you, he was one of my positives, Miguel, for sure. He was definitely one of my positives. Not really that tough to figure that out. Okay, here we are in the chat. Scott, Nick needs an email. I told y'all Facebook gets more attention than YouTube on here. That's not true. That's not true at all. Come on now. Oh, here's Miguel from Facebook. So what are your thoughts on Fant? He looked like the first round pick he should have been all season. Does it have to do with Locke? Maybe, but Teddy's perfectly capable of hitting that touchdown pass that Drew Lock threw, which that was more about the route and getting him in motion. And it was a fairly short pass. It was right on the money from Drew Lock. That's not a hard throw. That's not a real hard throw. So, and I'm not trying to disparage Lock. I know y'all think about this too. Don't read too much into that comment. What I'm saying is that has to do with Pat Shurmur getting Fant into the right spots to make a play, not on the quarterback. So having him use, and now we got to add him to the stream. And now it's Nick Kendall,
I'm here.
Everybody. Nick Kendall,
God.
Everyone.
Well, thank you for abiding by and holding down the fort there for a second, Scott. Hopefully you can hear me. And I'll have to let you be in charge of the comments and whatnot. But we made it via the phone. I had to use my phone as a hotspot, get the link, send it to myself, add it on my phone. So we made it. Of course, email wouldn't pull up, so I sent it to you on Twitter because it was easier to pull up that chat. But here we are. Hello, everybody.
Well, and that's why, we have producers for most shows, which is usually me. I was using the Hish reference. Normally, I don't have me talking behind my ear like this, saying this is what you have to say when he's all nervous. So let me, but here's the one that I wanted to hit for sure. Rock Like Angus. That's definitely a new name for us on YouTube. So appreciate it. And with a very generous super chat, he comes says, do you think the Broncos consider taking a corner with the high number 1 pick to bookend with Patrick or Patrick Surtain? I think Patrick, I immediately think last names. Then fix the OL in the second and third rounds. Have enjoyed watching you guys all year. Well, appreciate you being here. Thanks for the comment. And Nick, I know you cringe almost every time. You almost say it like, don't throw anything at me, but I'm going to say this. Corner could be the way to go. So this is your baby. Hit it.
Yeah, no, I mean, draft good players. The Broncos need good players across the board, and you don't ever draft for the immediate following season. It's about building a good team overall for the next 5+ years. And the Broncos picking in the 7 to 14 range, very good chance the best player on the board when they're picking at that spot is indeed a cornerback. You have obviously Derek Stingley Jr., who was lauded as one of the best freshman cornerbacks ever that year that LSU went on the run. He was incredible. He's been injured, but I mean, he's still going to go top 10 this season. He's just too smooth, too big, too long. Andrew Booth from Clemson is another guy to keep an eye on. Really, really talented. Convert from wide receiver, I believe. And then I'm sure you watched the college football playoffs this week. Ahmed Sauce Gardner from Cincinnati also looks really, really talented. So if the Broncos' best player available when they're on the board, they can't find a quarterback they want to trade for or can't trade back, I think that's honestly a very viable solution. And then you look at the Broncos' current roster. Ronald Darby, injured almost every single season. After next season, he's really easy to move on from. You have no idea what you have in Michael Ojemudia. And after that, the talent falls off a cliff. So cornerback, I think, is very much a viable position to look at. And it's also a very valuable position.
Well, the way that the team spreads you out now, especially playing out west, for goodness sakes, like I said, I mentioned Eric Coryell and the San Diego Chargers not that long ago. It's not that different with Mahomes and Derek Carr and Justin Herbert right now. That they want to throw the ball. They want to move the ball around a lot. And one, you can never have enough corners just because you're covering 5 receivers. 2, like you just mentioned, injuries and whatnot can decimate your depth in a hurry. Yeah. And kind of like the offensive line, if you've got one hole at corner, he's going to get picked on. There's only one ball. So I only need one target. We talk about finding the right receivers. I only need one that I need open on every play. And if I've got a big hole at cornerback, so yeah, I think going corner is a viable option, and then using some second, third round picks to hit the offensive line is an option for sure. Assuming that those guys are the right guys on the board. Again, you don't want to reach. That's when you run into trouble. And Nick and I have gone back and forth on this one a little bit, where I think the phrase best available player can be nonsense at times, because the best available player is so subjective and it's so unpredictable that just throwing that out there as if it's gospel is silly. But drafting for need, if you're reaching for guys that you don't think are there, is also not what you want to do. So what you want to do is you want to trust your board, and if it's close, you want to try and meet a need. You want to try and meet a need on. It's like, okay, I've got a wide receiver and a quarterback, a defensive tackle, and offensive guard. These four guys I think are all pretty similar, and I'm picking next. What do I need the most? That's where I try and match need with my draft board. And again, Rock Lake Angus, certainly appreciate the super. We went back into it earlier. Was asked, what were some of the positives? Shane weighs in. He says, Lock at QB, Fant somehow has the ability to turn upfield and get some yards after the catch. And Sutton actually became a difference maker. Sutton did have a solid game, but I hit on two of those three for sure on offense. When I said I thought Locke was a positive. Again, if you can rein him in, there's an old phrase that I like here in the South. They say it's a whole lot easier to put a bit in his mouth than a boot in his ass. Meaning it's easier to rein somebody back a little bit than it is to try and teach somebody that is lazy to work hard. And it's easier to rein Drew Lock in a little bit than it is to try and teach somebody to have a big arm. So he's been reined in. I think he's been reined in. That's three straight games, Nick, without a turnover.
Yeah, he definitely had some turnover-worthy throws in this game. 2 dropped interceptions in that first or second quarter. And his footwork and mechanics, especially when he senses pressure, it tends to fall back and loses touch. I think you saw that in the last half. But overall, I thought Drew Lock had a solid game. It was not as good as his Raiders game. But yeah, this game I do not put it on Drew Lock. You talk about Sutton getting more involved, Fant getting more involved. Also, I think there's variables for that. I mean, Sutton tends to really get an offensive explosion when Jerry Jeudy isn't playing. Not only wasn't Jerry Jeudy not playing, but you also had Tim Patrick not playing, so the target's got to go to Sutton. And with Fant, the Chargers were missing Kenneth Murray and another linebacker, I believe. So I think there's reason for those guys sticking out like they did statistically, even though on the whole, I'm not putting too much value on the single game output.
And Joel Juarez coming in here with back-to-back comments I want to hit. Kind of a new name. It says, what about Javonte Williams? Do you think he should be the number 1 running back? Get rid of Gordon. Gordon's a free agent, so he'll be gone. And I think that was kind of the plan this year is, let them work together, and then you've got your true number 1. But yeah, I think Javonte Williams should get as the season wore on, should get the lion's share of the most important carries. And then he also says, I think we should build with Drew Lock. Teddy performed very low for the amount of money we spent on him. And that's one I want to try and correct, because you got Teddy Bridgewater for a song. You didn't spend anything on him. It was like $4 million in a 6th or 7th round draft pick. That's zero. When we start talking about 3 first-round draft picks for a franchise quarterback and you got him for $4 million in a 6th, you didn't spend anything on Teddy Bridgewater. That was one of the things that made it very viable for you. He didn't cost you anything, and he doesn't cost you anything next year. So roll the dice. It was a kind of a low risk, low reward type of move, which again, that doesn't get anybody very excited. But appreciate the comments, Joel. Well,
yeah, thanks, Joel. I think if Drew Lock is back next year, it's going to be the same exact situation as this season, where you're talking about, instead of Teddy Bridgewater, it's a Tyrod Taylor, it's a Andy Dalton situation, and you're having a new coaching staff, so they have no feelings about the previous play of Drew Lock, at least personally, which might be a factor in Denver right now. But I think you're probably ending up for a slightly different route to the same outcome. A team that's winning 7 to 9 games, and with only 1 year left of Drew Lock. I'm ready for the whole team to move on from Locke. I'm ready for Locke to move on from this team.
Mhm.
I think that it's heading for a clean break. Everybody's saying, we gave it the old college try. God bless you and good luck wherever, what's next to you. We need to try something new here. And I think that'd be best for all parties. And I think it'd be best for this fan base as well.
And Richie, isn't that a great phrase? When you're looking for talent, who's the guy that wants to go get more? Who's the guy you're always trying to slow down? It's like, just pump the brakes a little bit, kid. You'll be all right. So it's a whole lot easier to put a bit in his mouth than a boot in his ass. Find somebody with a high motor, and that goes for pretty much all walks of life. That's what I'm always looking for. Who's the high motor guy out there, or girl out there that's going to put in the work? We can rein them in a little bit. Ambition's a good thing, despite the fact that the NFL punishes ambition and rewards losing. But that's a different story that you've heard me say before. Loris was talking about Antonio Brown and the $330K, freezing him out of incentives for Antonio Brown that he could have earned. Would you sign Antonio Brown to this team? Nope. No, I would not. I don't want the distraction. You've got enough wide receivers, plain and simple. Whether or not it's his fault or not, there's other ways to go. If I'm the Atlanta Falcons and I'm running out there with Russell Gage and Olamide Zaccheaus, maybe. But as I'm trying to build something, I don't know that I want the distraction there with Antonio Brown either. He's not worthy. Again, like Hawk said, if you can look up Hawk on Twitter, Andrew Hawkins says this is the greatest retirement announcement of all time.
Yeah, if he's coming anywhere, he needs to come with a psych evaluation because he's got some I have real concern for his mental health and what's going on there with his stability. So hopefully he figures out and he can be healthy and safe.
Well, and yeah, because right now you're like, oh yeah, that's you almost kind of laugh, he's having a temper tantrum out there, and it's kind of funny. Well, what happens in 10 years when he's out of the spotlight?
Yeah.
What happens when nobody cares about Antonio Brown anymore? What then? What happens when no one's willing to go the extra mile to keep him on the field? Because that's all they really care about right now is what they can give him. What happens to Antonio Brown there? That's what scares me. Going back to the Breakfast Club, go take a look at John Bender in 10 years if you want to see something funny. That's what scares me about the whole situation. And I hope he's okay. The pressure in the spotlight might not be good for him, and once he's out of it, he might be fine. But I hope he puts some money in the bank and has a nice, cushy life the rest of the way.
It reminds me, and this is also, we make opinions and form our knowledge going forward based on past experiences. It reminds me a lot of Brandon Marshall before he was diagnosed with his bipolar disorder, where he was just having absolute shit fits on the sideline and like taking the ball from the ball boy and like punting it in practice. And I know wide receivers are divas, blah, blah, blah. You got to be a little bit different maybe to be in that situation anyways. But it just really, and I'm not a psychiatrist, but I just hope that whatever's going on with Antonio Brown is figured out and he can rein it in and be okay. Because that to me just screams of somebody who's having a mental health crisis.
And Travis comes in with some stars and says, you guys don't see a new coaching staff coming and actually, building with Drew? I think I'm not going to say no right off the back, but would you want to come in right now as a new coach and say, that's my building block? I don't see enough out of him and say, think of it this way. If you're interviewing for that job and you see this roster and you see the draft picks and the general manager says to you, we want to offer you the job, but you've got to start Drew Lock as your quarterback. What do you say?
I say thanks, but no thanks. I got to use Drew Lock and beat Justin Herbert and Patrick Mahomes 4 times a year.
Gives you pause, right?
Oh my gosh, yes.
Yeah. So I mean, think about it that way. Ask that question. I'm not saying no, but I certainly would say that there's no guarantees. I think he's in a really good situation where he'll get a fresh start on a 1-year deal.
Yeah.
And he's got the, like I said, the biggest advantage he's got is he's the only quarterback under contract. So will somebody else come in? Yeah. And frankly, if you go on to, I think it should publish here in just a minute, on Mile High Huddle. The title of the video is Drew Lock sends message to fans. If you go watch that video, I think I set it to go live here in 4 minutes at the half hour, where he's talking about, the love he has for his teammates and the compassion for the fans. It's like, man, yeah, that's a guy I want to play floor and play with. More of that. that he's got a chance. I do think he has a chance.
Yeah, and I mean, if the Broncos cannot go out there and get Russell Wilson or Aaron Rodgers, I think Drew Lock versus a Mariota, Dalton, Tyrod Taylor situation is viable for a 1-year season. I don't know if the fan base has the mental resolve at this point to see that and accept that, which I wouldn't blame them after the last 6 seasons of ineptitude at the quarterback position. But or overall ineptitude. This year at least has been bordering on league average, but it is what it is. The end result has been the same. So I think that, if they do keep Locke, hopefully he wins and hopefully he shows enough. But I think that what is Locke going to be 26 next year, last year of his contract, there's no way that he has done enough or shown enough starts over 3 separate seasons where he's a guy that I want to be anything but a flyer status on with, like a speed dating kind of thing.
Yeah, where you don't know, where you just say, okay, we'll give him a chance. Sure. Want to bring in some guys and may the best man win and do it legitimately. I feel like that quarterback competition was over the minute Teddy was signed and the rest was just lip service. I do believe that from what we saw.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, I think that Teddy.
I think he was going to hit a button and hit the wrong one and hit the cancel button. So I appreciate everybody being here with us today. It's a new year with new problems. So on that note, I'm going to give him just a second, but I was going to drop some news. There we go. I was going to drop some news while you were gone just to fill some airtime. I'll go ahead and do it anyway. Today's my birthday. So happy birthday to me. January 3rd.
Happy birthday, Scott.
So I needed something to kill an extra minute as we were getting out of here and my voice is getting out. So this one's kind of a purgatory birthday. It's 49 for the first time. So the next one's a big one. Man, there is no sugarcoating 50. I was okay with 40. Man, 50 just sounds you're an old dude at that point at 50. 40 was okay. 50, 50. So one more year. I'm going to enjoy my 40s for one more year.
Thank you for putting up with me. I can't look anything up or leave the stream here without it completely crashing. So lesson learned. Haven't ever done it on the phone before, but we'll have to figure out the internet after this. And thank you for holding down the fort for your birthday. Thanks for joining us today on your birthday. You'd have been totally viable saying, I'm going to take today off after that abomination of a Broncos loss that we saw. And if it's any resolve for us going forward, I think we'll hopefully see even a better football product next season. So that's going to be the gift, Scott.
Yeah, it's this community is again, I've said it before, and I'm not just blowing smoke. The coffee helps for sure. I call it caffeinated bliss. But it's kind of like when you don't feel like working out. I don't feel like working out. I don't want to go to the gym. And then you get here and you feel great. So this group always makes me feel better about the day, and it just lifts my spirits. So this was a good day. My kids aren't even out of bed. They're home from school for one more day, and then they're remote for this week because of all the stuff that's been going on. So they weren't even out of bed yet. So Broncos for breakfast, no problem. Let's get out here and talk some Broncos because, again, I know. Here we go. It says, be happy that you're 49 and 50 next year. Live every year. There are many that never get the chance. My wife said, she's like, 49, how'd that happen? I'm like, well, I didn't die. Funny how she's like, well, that's a good thing. So that's how things happen. So that's, you don't have any option,
Nope.
Beats the alternative.
That's what I always say.
Beats the alternative for sure. But no, there's a lot to be as we get to, is this our first show of the new year? It is, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. For you and me, this is our first show. So, I felt like the Cincinnati game pretty much gave us some closure. I said that at the beginning before that game. I'm like, you lose that game, we're getting some closure here. I still feel that way. And now you've got a crap ton of money, a bunch of draft picks, a good young team, and you should be getting new owners, new coaches, and a bunch of new players. It is going to be one hell of an offseason. It's going to be a lot of fun. I can't wait. I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, it should be a lot of fun. A lot of possibilities this offseason, and for the office chair GMs that you and I are, maybe not couch, but the office chair since we're working here, we will have a lot of fun talking the possibilities and a lot of team building philosophy, draft philosophy. We said it all off season last year where, it doesn't really matter until you have the quarterback, but you got to have the pieces around the quarterback too. There's a reason Aaron Rodgers has only been to one Super Bowl, even though he might be the best talented quarterback we've ever seen play. So we're going to have fun with it. And thank you guys so much for joining us today. Thank you, Scott, for holding down the fort while I dealt with technical difficulties. Hopefully you're not getting seasick. My arm's starting to fall asleep here holding up my phone, but yeah, I know, gosh. But thank you guys so much. I had to go with one hand so I could go back to my coffee. But you make sure you guys are following us on Twitter. I'm at Nick Kendell, MHH. Scott is at Scout Kennedy. Also follow us at Mile High Huddle and at Huddle Up Pod. If you're on YouTube, make sure you're joining us, liking, subscribing, and sharing to us on YouTube. If you're on Facebook, join us at facebook.com/Mile High Huddle and Mile High Huddle Pod. And subscribe, like, and share it to our channel as well as Scott's channel at youtube.com/C/Scott Kennedy. How'd you like that, Scott? That was all off the top of the dome. I've done this enough times. I kind of memorized.
Like, you know what? He's not going to be able to hit these banners. Let me go in and see if I can help in the background. That's stuff that y'all don't care about. And Richie's saying, yeah, someone get Nick a phone saying, I know I got several of them here. Between filming baseball and doing those kind of stuff. How do you not have a phone tripod at this point?
I do, but time was of the essence. So I had to run as quick as I could.
Mac Jones and building a team around a quarterback. Zach Belichick deserves some more credit turning that team into what they are after losing. I think Belichick gets plenty of credit. To be honest,
I was going to say, yeah. There's
considered the greatest of all time.
There was an article that was just released where they said Coach of the Year and Executive of the Year, and they gave Bill Belichick both of them from people across the league. So he's getting plenty of credit. Deservedly, but plenty of credit.
Yeah, and did Jamar Chase put a boot into this Rookie of the Year contest, this Mac Jones nonsense?
I hope so.
That should have done it, right?
Yeah, I hope so.
That should have done it because it's like I was gonna raise hell if they and I'm still gonna raise hell if they give it to Mac Jones again. You're talking about one of the maybe a top 10 wide receiver out of 500 receivers versus a number 15 quarterback out of 30. Okay, he's middle of the pack, and this guy's top 2 or 3% as a rookie. This isn't even a contest. Are you joking?
Yeah, I will say that Mac Jones is probably the more valuable player, just because even an average quarterback brings you more return than an elite wide receiver. But
average is easier to find than elite, period.
Yes. And for a Rookie of the Year purposes, I agree. If both were available via trade, I think Mac Jones might be actually getting more on return just because it's so hard to find that young, cost-controlled quarterback that you can build around then. But it's got to be Jamar Chase. He's been great. I've really liked Jalen Waddle this season also. He's been amazing. Penny Sewell, Rashawn Slater. This has been a really good rookie class, and that should make people should be excited about this draft class too. It does sound like it's not as good as last year based on what I've seen. I would not put it as good as last year. The talent's not the same, but you're going to get a chance at a good player if you can't get that quarterback. So
I went into last year and I hadn't really been a draftnik in a while, and I was like, I don't think this is just my newness coming back to it and getting reestablished into this space. These are really good players. This is a special draft class. And it has been. It's the guys for the most part, sans quarterback, which you don't expect quarterbacks. That's why I always said you're either going to get an exciting player or your quarterback of the future, not necessarily both.
Yeah.
When you're talking about these top 10 picks, and they've lived up to it. It was a really good draft.
Yeah, it was a good draft. This one I don't think is as good. I mean, we just watched this last weekend. I think there were 3 players that we watched that would go 1, 2, and 3 in this class if they were available. In Bryce Young, Will Anderson. Oh my God, Will Anderson was incredible, and C.J. Stroud. So it's unfortunate for that situation, but hey, maybe it's a viable strategy. We'll have plenty of chance to talk about Broncos trading down from 2022 to accumulate more 2023 capital to go up and get a quarterback next year if this year is not the year. But Scott, we got to get you on out of here. I got to probably go figure out what's going on with the internet. We got Steve coming in, though, with a super chat here. I believe it's Steve.
Yeah,
it's teeny tiny.
Steve and Travis coming in. Happy birthday to you. And I think Ethan's is coming up before too long. My dad's is Groundhog's Day, so you said yours was in a month. That's pretty close. So lots of birthdays. Appreciate y'all spending time with us today. And Nick, good job today fighting through it. I know that can be panicky.
Yeah, I think I hope the chat enjoyed me.
And he just locked up right on cue.
I'm here.
You're back now.
Okay, cool. Well, I'm going to go figure out the internet. Happy birthday. Stay safe, everyone. We'll see you tomorrow. Go Broncos.